We begin tonight with a moment of silence for the last lingering shreds of Jason Kidd's reputation. What a duck. Tries to execute a power play on Nets general manager Billy King, goes to stab King in the back and get the final say on player personnel like he has Doc Rivers' track record or something. Misses, then pursues another coaching job, which to get it, he has to get somebody else fired. And before you can say Mirza Teletovic, the next thing he knows, he's the coach of the Milwaukee Bucks without any personnel authority and without any realistic expectation of having to work past the last game of the regular season for the next few years. What a duck. I'm using that word deliberately. Ever watch Mad Men? Jason Kidd is Duck Phillips. Duck Phillips was the Mitt Romney sound-alike who secretly arranged the purchase of the ad agency in the show and only at the announcement reveals that the new owners are going to make him president, and in his first act he's demoting his enemy, the show's lead character Don Draper. If Don Draper don't like it tough, he has to live up to his contract, which was when Duck Phillips found out for the first time that Don Draper didn't have a contract. The next time we saw Duck Phillips, he was drinking alone in a hotel room, drawing business cards on used napkins. So, Jason Kidd, Duck, saw his reputation survive despite being uncoachable as a kid, saw it survive the domestic abuse charges, survive the DWI, survive the 10 straight games without a field goal in the playoffs, survive the night he offed assistant Lawrence Frank, survived the spilled soda timeout fiasco. Not this. Welcome to Milwaukee, where he is unlikely to be able to buy a minority ownership in this team from Jay-Z. Speaking of ownership, what kind of ducks are Wes Edens and Mark Lazary of the Bucks? Not only did they throw Larry Drew overboard after just 13 months, not only did they just trade 2 draft choices for a coach, but the coach they traded for had just tried to duck Phillips, at least one of his old bosses, and one of his old owners in Brooklyn. Disloyal and backstabbing? Where do we sign up? Who do you want us to make the check out to? Disloyal and backstabbing and maybe a bad coach. Coaching value metrics are in their infancy in every sport. ESPN's analytics guru, Dean Oliver, measures how much players improve under a coach, and by that benchmark, he suggests Kidd had an impact on the Nets of maybe as many as 5 additional wins last season, though only about half a win's worth after January 1st. But Jeremias Engelman, who relies on regularized adjusted plus-minus, RAPM, says Kidd's coaching cost the Nets just under 3 points a game and thus cost them anywhere from 5 to 7 more wins last season. The simplest metric, 2013-14 Nets under Jason Kidd, 44 wins. 2012-13 Nets under Avery Johnson and P.J. Carlesimo, 49 wins. But take the optimistic metric. The Bucks just traded 2 second-round players for 5 more wins. Wow. So if they had had Duck Kidd last year, they might have improved all the way to 20-62, which past Jason Kidd's duckishness is the real issue here. Is it ever worth trading for a coach? We take the position so seriously, but our brothers at information at 538.com say 95% of all baseball managers have an impact of no greater than 2 wins or 2 losses all season. Once upon a time, the non-playing coach was considered virtually irrelevant. All key decisions in virtually all sports were made by players, led by a player captain, later by a player coach or manager who also played. The baseball manager wasn't universally involved in strategy until maybe the late 1880s, 1890s. The title was originally business manager, the guy who made the hotel reservations. As late as 1921 in the NFL, the coach was so unimportant that the owner of the Rock Island Independents got so fed up with player coach Frank Coughlin that in the middle of a game against the Chicago Cardinals, he called Coughlin over to the sideline and fired him and made halfback Jimmy Conzelman the new player coach in the middle of the game. A very knowledgeable, very successful upper echelon team executive whose name and sport I will not identify was once talking generically about trading on-field bosses for players or draft picks or something, and this executive told me he loved his equally knowledgeable, equally successful upper echelon sports on-field boss, but that nearly every strategic and personnel decision in every sport is now made long before game time by ever-increasing numbers of people and committees with ever-improving information science. Anybody in the business, he said, could do 99% of what that guy does during the game. He volunteered that if somebody was really willing to trade him a good player or other good compensation, anything that would mitigate the public relations trauma, he would trade his on-field boss in a heartbeat. For a player, of course. So just remember, Jason, If some other team decides that you are worth 3 second-round draft choices to them, who knows? The Bucks might be willing to flip you. And the next thing you know, you're coaching the Sixers. Or drawing business cards on used napkins. So, duck kid, duck.